Y'all excuse me if I'm a little bit sluggish today. Just ate lunch and I got a belly full and it's gonna be rough, but we're gonna work our way through it and we're gonna get another one of these plots planted here. A plot of cool weather crops in our dream garden. If this is your first time on our channel, welcome. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button below and hit that bell button so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. If you're a frequent viewer of our channel, it's always good to have you back. So this is our third plot of cool weather crops that we're planting in the dream garden. This plot here is where I had some sorghum sudan grass over the summer. It's really nice and tall. You might have seen the video where we took our lawnmower without the blades on, went and crimped this plot. We then covered it with a tarp, let that grass kind of die off and decomposed. Since then, I have removed the tarp, and then I came in here with the mower and cut as much of that grass as I could with the push mower, basically just to chop it up and leave it where it was. I then put some of my chicken manure compost on top of it and I tilled it in just to get everything incorporated. Now if you saw those previous two fall planting videos we did here in the dream garden, you saw where I laid out drip tape. I buried that drip tape and then I planted on top of it. For this particular plot, we're not going to use drip tape, and I'll tell you why. So if we look at this soil here, we can tell there's quite a bit of organic debris left from that sorghum sudan grass cover crop. Now this organic matter here is going to do wonders for the soil, but it's going to cause problems if I try to run that drip tape layer through here. I've done that before and it doesn't work as well when there's a lot of trash or a lot of organic material in the soil, and it's still a little chunky here because of all this organic material. It didn't till up super fine. We're going to have some good soil, we just won't be able to use our drip tape layer attachment here. So instead of using my double wheel hoe to make a furrow and then taking my drip tape layer attachment and burying that drip tape in that furrow like we did on those previous two plots, I'm going to do something different here because I can't use my drip tape layer with all this organic material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a hill or make a hill where all my rows are going to be. I've got my high arch wheel hoe right here and I've got the plow set in the hilling position, so that's going to make a mound or a hill of dirt. Now planting on a hill or a mound is very useful if you've got an area that drains fairly poorly, and this plot right here is pretty flat and it doesn't drain very well, so planting on that elevated hill can help out when you don't have very good soil drainage. So we've got some crops today like Brussel sprouts that we're going to be planting on single rows, and we'll plant those right on top of the hill for that improved drainage. And then we've got other crops like beets and kohlrabi that we're going to want to plant on double rows. We can really stack those in there, plant two rows fairly close together and save some space in our garden. So when this thing makes a hill with this plow set here, on each side of that hill it will actually make a little mini furrow, and that makes a nice planting indicator for when we plant double rows. So for the single row stuff, we're going to plant on top of the hill. For the double row stuff, we're going to plant right to the side of each hill, and it should work out just right. I've got my rows laid off here 3 feet apart. I use these stakes to mark where my rows are going to be. So at the end of one row there's a little marking in the soil or a little scratch mark. At the other end there's a stake I can drive to, so I'll make sure I get straight rows. So I think we got 10 or 11 rows in this plot on 3-foot row spacing. Let's take our high arch wheel hoe, go ahead and make our hills and lay off where our rows are going to be. All right. So we got 10 hills made here, and I actually had to go over these twice with my high arch wheel hoe and that plow set. There's so much of this straw down there that it didn't make a hill on the first pass, but when I went over it twice I got a nice hill. I got what I was looking for. So for my double row stuff like the beets and kohlrabi, I'm going to plant them and these two little valleys here on the side of that hill. And then for my Brussels sprouts and my flowers that I'm going to plant those right on top of the hill. So let's take a look at what we've got to plant today. On the first row, we're going to plant these flowers here. This is a cool weather flower called calendula, also known as a Scottish marigold. So these things should do well in the cool weather, make some nice pretty fall colored blooms. So we're going to plant a single row of these guys. And then we've got a lot of beets here. I've got a flat of early wonder beets, a flat of Kestrel beets, and a flat of these gold beets. And these things need to go in the ground for a week or so now. You can see we've got a nice plug there. And we're going to get these beets in the ground. We're going to plant the beets on double rows. Man, I don't know how many rows we'll get out of these 3 flats, but we're going to plant as many rows as we can of these beets here. We love to grow beets around here. They're good to eat and they're good for you. And then the other stuff we have to plant here is Brussel sprouts and kohlrabi. So we've got some red Brussels sprouts here that we need to get in the ground. This variety is called Red Bull. We've got these jade cross Brussels sprouts that we'll need to get in the ground. And over here we've got some kohlrabi. We've got some purple Vienna kohlrabi, and this is called white Vienna kohlrabi, although the bulbs are kind of green. So we'll plant the kohlrabi on double rows. You can really stack those in there tight. We'll plant these Brussels sprouts on single rows and just get as many rows out of this stuff as we can. Hopefully we go ahead and fill up this plot with all this stuff we have here today. So we had just enough plants to plant that 30 by 35 plot here in the dream garden. Just enough. I mean, if we would have had just a few fewer plants, we wouldn't have gotten all 10 rows planted. Let's take a look at what we got. So this is the entire plot here. We got the whole plot planted, which is always nice relief. I don't always plant an entire plot at a time, but it's nice when we're able to, when we have time to. So on our first row here, we've got a single row of our cool flowers. This is our calendula, or our Scottish marigold. We got those on about 12 inches apart or so. We didn't measure any of this. I've been doing this quite a while and I can eyeball it pretty good, so I didn't measure it out, but an approximation, probably about 12 inches apart. Then we get over here, we start with our double rows of beets. You can see there we've got 2 rows packed in there nice and tight, and once that foliage gets up, it'll shade out that center there, and it just works really well to plant these on double rows. These here are early wonder beets, and then right over here we've got our Kestrel beets. So those are both red beets there, and those should come off pretty fast, especially it stays relatively warm like it's been being. And then the third row of beets we've got here are our gold beets. These are our touchstone gold beets, and these things are absolutely beautiful when they start growing and start maturing. So 3 double rows of beets there, and then we get over here, we've got our Brussels sprouts. We ended up getting 2 rows of the green Brussels sprouts. This is a variety called Jade Cross. We can see that there. And Brussels sprouts can be a little tricky because you got to get them in when it's still warm enough to get plenty of plant growth. But they really need a frost to kind of trigger that sprout development. So it's a kind of weird window you got to squeeze Brussels sprouts in. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. The weather doesn't always cooperate. I think we've timed it fairly decent this year. And then this one here is another Brussels sprouts. This is a red one called Red Bull, and it kind of looks like red cabbage. The transplants do, but it should grow out real nicely. And never tried red Brussels sprouts before, so I'm a rookie on that one, and really excited about trying those. And then our last 3 rows here, we've got kohlrabi. Now I didn't have enough plants to do all 3 kohlrabi rows in double rows. I usually like to plant kohlrabi on double rows because, like the beets, you can really stack them in there. So this first one here is a double row. I had more plants of these, of the white Vienna kohlrabi. So that one makes a kind of pale green colored bulb, and they're a little more flattened, almost look like a Vidalia onion. And then these last 2 rows here are my purple Vienna kohlrabi, and they make a nice pretty purple bulb. Now after I planted these guys, I put the overhead sprinkler on them for about 45 minutes or so. It's kind of overcast today, and I think the high was around 85, which we've already hit. Temperatures are starting to cool now, later afternoon. So I put that overhead sprinkler on them just to cool them off a little bit, give them a little bit of water. But since it was kind of cooler outside today, the transplants didn't look near as bad as they have when I was planting those other 2 plots. It makes a huge difference putting in transplants in 85-degree weather versus 95-degree weather. You know, that soil gets so hot they can't take that extreme heat, and you have to kind of keep them cooled off as you're planting. But we didn't have to do that with these guys, and they should be just fine. Still haven't had any significant rainfall in several months, you know, about 2 months. But we should be getting some in the next few days, which would be nice, and that'll give these guys a nice little bath and nice little drench, and get those roots established. And a lot of the stuff in this plot, the kohlrabi and the beets, like I said, should come off pretty fast. The flowers and the Brussel sprouts, they'll be here for a while. But a lot of this stuff will come off pretty fast, and we'll probably come behind that stuff with some lettuce, which I just started in the greenhouse late last week. So as far as our cool weather crop planting goes, we've got 3 of the 4 plots that we're going to put cool weather crops in already done. We did our first 2 in previous videos. Go check those out if you haven't seen them. We got another one done today. We still got our carrot plot to do. We usually try to get those carrots in early to middle October. The soil's still a little warm, and carrots don't like hot soil. They germinate better when the soil temperature is closer to 75. So it looks like we'll be late October getting our carrots planted this year, which will be just fine. We'll do that in this 4th plot, take off the tarp and get that ready, and we'll do that on an upcoming video. If any of you guys out there in gardening land have any tips on Brussels sprouts, I would love to hear them. Like I said, some years they do really well for me, some years they don't. So if you got any tips and tricks to growing really nice, tall, evenly dense stalks of Brussels sprouts, let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in any of the seeds or any of the varieties we talked about in this video, I'll put some links below so you can check those out. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time.